It was never about Erica. It was never about
in whatever way possible, we need Christian leaders who have a good understanding of the Bible, to have a good understanding of what's going on in our nation as well, and then be able to communicate that effectively to the youth at the same time.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Jacob York Show. It's been a minute, and if you can't tell, we're in a completely new studio. I'm here with the vice president of the Turning Point chapter at Olivet Nazarene University, which I happen to be the president of as well. But Tyler's going to be joining me on this episode as my co-host. First co-host experience for Tyler. How you feeling about it?
Great. It's great to be here, live and in person for the first time. Excited to see what we get into.
Yeah, this is a little bit more fun where we're both sitting in the studio instead of, a couple 100 miles away from each other, and then it's like, hey, you got to wait 2 seconds to respond because the Wi-Fi and whatnot. It's a little bit more casual, so that is nice. Today, we're going to be talking about a very fun topic, which me and Tyler have experienced on the ground, actually, a couple times now, but there's a little bit of a swirl in the sports industry and, honestly, just politics in general and just America, revolving men and women's sports. And you might say to yourself, that sounds really stupid. And I would actually agree with you. I would say that this is a common sense issue that is going on where we're having people who I can't seem to reconcile the fact that men don't belong in women's sports.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think this wouldn't be a debatable topic. We joke around and say, it's just common sense. But there are those out there that are actually very vocal. They may be a small minority, but they definitely make their voices heard when it comes to this issue. So
yeah, and so basically to set the stage, this conversation really blew up in 2022, I believe, when a man by the name of Leah Thomas was a swimmer who was 65th in the country in Division I swimming in the 100-meter freestyle, if I have that correctly off the top of my head. Then decided, you know what? Men's sports, they're too hard. I'm going to go swim on the women's team. And then magically got first place in the nation.
Yeah, and one thing they won't say, he actually did tie with Riley Gaines for first place, a woman. So for a man to go in and, think he's going to perform that well, he did still tie with a woman. So
yeah, and I actually do want to bring up a point about that later on. But I think it's funny that people are saying, oh, yeah, men, they can play in women's sports. There's nothing wrong with it. But then there is, like, a semi-popular phrase that, like, if you get beat by a girl in sports, that looks really bad on you. But if you're competing in the same league, why does it look so bad? I don't know. It's kind of funny to me. A lot of this seems like common sense stuff. Either way, we're about to play a video, a little bit of a montage from the rally outside the Chicago Sky game yesterday, where there was multiple very funny interactions. XXXY Athletics was out there. Plenty of other people were out there. We have got a couple of special guests coming on the show today. I'm very, very excited for our episode and a lot of good conversations. So let's cue up that video for you guys to watch.
What's the rule? Well, there isn't one. That's the problem because they can't define. So then you could have somebody who was a man transition to a woman. Kind of similar.
Protesting because you could, because if it might happen.
Correct, because when Sophie Cunningham. Correct, because when Sophie Cunningham.
No man have played that.
I'll explain to you why we're out here. Because when Sophie Cunningham came out and said, yeah, I think that's wrong, that she got a ton of backlash. And so we're out here supporting her.
Yeah, they made a joke.
But the problem is they probably could until the WNBA actually establishes what does the W in the WNBA actually mean. It's all right. Have a nice day. God bless you.
Oh no, God bless you.
I know.
Already has.
It's okay. He already has. It's okay. But thank you, though. It's okay. I said, God bless you. And she said, oh, no, God bless you. And I think she thought that was a comeback. This is our God. Let's go. This is our God. Let's go.
How are you guys doing? You guys good?
We're good.
Hey, let's take a group picture.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, get the Instagram logo out of here, guys. I guess go drop a follow. What can I say? No, I'm just kidding. I actually laugh at we were laughing as that video was playing about that lady that was like, "Oh no, God bless you," and she thought it was a roast. And I turned around and I was like, I think that you were unintentionally very nice for some reason. So
Yeah,
that
it was definitely not the flex or roast she thought it was.
yeah, I think that's funny though when you go into these political rallies or high intense debate situations, and then somebody is really emotionally charged up, and they think they hit you with a gotcha, and it's just like totally opposite of what they were thinking.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty funny.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the rally. We're gonna bring on Maggie Corbett here in a minute. Part of Club America chapter. We'll let her do her introduction here in a minute. But overall, you've been to 2 rallies now in support of Sophie Cunningham, who in, I believe, February said something, or during the offseason said something about men staying out of women's sports, and then ESPN re-released something, and then it blew up again. Am I correct in saying
Yeah,
that?
so she recorded or sat down with ESPN for an interview in the off season, which was February. They published it July 21st, I believe, and then that's when it blew up. She made a comment, I have it right here, quote, "I want to protect girls in locker rooms or young girls in sports who shouldn't have to compete against biological men."
Yep.
So
Yeah.
something you wouldn't think is really that, crazy of a statement to say. But it obviously got a lot of backlash when ESPN published that interview.
Yeah, so we've been to 2 rallies now, staying outside a Chicago Sky game where the Indiana Fever came to town. They played. We're supporting Sophie Cunningham and her ability to speak truth into the matter, into the situation. And yeah, we were outside supporting it. And then we also had the pleasure of getting to meet ENES KANTER, future WNBA superstar, yesterday outside the stadium. Very fun experience.
Yeah, just going to say, when he goes into the NBA, he's going to be dropping down some insane dunks because, he was right next to me and I was looking up there.
What's the WNBA dunk record in a single game? 1?
It's pretty low. I do know, fun fact, there are less women who have dunked in the WNBA than humans who have walked on the moon, I believe. I believe it's 9 women. Now they may be able to dunk multiple times, but there's only 9 women in
Oh my
WNBA
gosh.
history who have been able to throw down a dunk.
That's a good stat to pull out. All right, we're gonna bring on one of our 2 special guests for the night, Maggie Corbett. Maggie, I will let you do your own introduction. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, I'm Maggie Corbett. I'm the president and founder at Lake Forest High School's Club America chapter.
All right, Maggie. So you've been at 2 rallies now as well. Why did you decide that you're like, okay, this is significant enough for me to actually, well, 1, get behind in supporting Sophie Cunningham, but then also show up to a rally?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were in my local area, so they were easy to go to. But also in middle school, I was on a volleyball team, and we had a transgender athlete on the team. We actually had 2, but one was only for 1 season. And it's not fair. They should not be in women's locker rooms, and we shouldn't be playing against them because biologically we're not the same. And I don't know if you guys know about Peyton McNabb, but in 2022 in September, she was hit in the head, like when she got spiked in the head with a volleyball. And she had a brain injury, and she was like partially paralyzed on her right side, and she still is, and so she can't play.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely terrible. That's a horrible situation.
All right, so Maggie, what were your overall thoughts on the rally, the 2 rallies you've been to for Sophie Cunningham?
I personally thought they were a lot of fun. We had some really great interactions at the last one. There were definitely some people who were willing to listen, but then there were a lot of people who were really hateful. And I think a lot of people don't truly realize why we're there. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I had a blast personally. I had a blast talking to, yes, people who, well, I will say there wasn't that many people on the opposite side of the fence at the last rally. The first rally, I will say, got to give them credit. They were obnoxious. Yeah. They were loud. They made a scene. They were playing Let It Go by Frozen. Yeah, it was a whole deal. So I got to give them credit for the first rally. They showed up. The trans activists showed out on the first one, but they fell off hard for the second one. I mean, I think there was only 2 of them there.
Yeah, it was not a very impressive showing for them at this last one we went to. But to comment off what you were saying, how they showed up in large numbers, and were really obnoxious at first rally we went to. The one interesting thing is they were going out there to stand up for something, you know, they said they believed in. But then whenever me, you, anybody with us tried to have a conversation with them, they didn't really want to talk to us. They want to, you know, try to defend their view on the subject, which is very interesting.
Yeah, super. Oh, it looks like Maggie might have lost her, so we'll bring her back in a minute. But yeah, going off of that point, it's really odd that people who are activists at a rally will show up to an event but then not engage with the other side. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you're going to go out there and you're going to protest at a rally with signs that you want people to see, and then you get there and you're like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about it, or I just want to yell and curse at you, that just kind of doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know about you, but maybe that's their entire goal, is that they only want to talk to people who do agree with them. But talking to the people who agree with you all the time, where does that get you in life? If you only talk with people who already agree with you, what ground do you make in those circles? What change do you bring to your country?
I mean, obviously, I'd say, you know, none at all. But I think to build off the point, like, they only want kind of the people around them to affirm them, and that's kind of their whole thing. And they don't want to argue with opposing worldviews or ideologies or visions, because they ultimately want affirmation in what they believe. And yeah, they'll, you know, cuss at you, call you slurs, yell Nazis or fascists at you, but at the end of the day, they don't want to have a conversation to try to back up any of their claims.
And I love that they'll call you like a fascist, and I'll be like, okay, what does a fascist mean? And they're like, I don't know. Or they'll be like, oh, you're transphobic, and I'll be like, no, I'm not afraid of trans people, although maybe we should be. Like, you know, a lot of violence comes from, you know, that side of the party. All right. Well, Maggie is back. Don't know what happened there. Hopefully,
I don't know
hopefully we're
either.
good now. Hey, that's fine. You know what? That's you know, we live and we learn. The amount of times
Yeah.
that my webcam has shut off during one of our debate nights already, and you can attest to that. It's multiple times at this point.
The
But
show goes on.
show goes on. All right, Maggie, I want to ask a bit of a more difficult question, so buckle up.
Okay.
But
Oh goodness.
do you think that this is a women's sports issue, which I definitely think it is? Like, the WNBA has a large problem in this.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think it's more of an ideology issue on top of that? I mean, you saw, like, even at the rally yesterday, there were people who were very left-wing who were out there supporting with us at the same time. So is it as big of an issue as we're making it out to be? Do you think it's a real ideological issue, or do we think it's just like one specific sect, only the WNBA has this problem?
No, I think it's in all sports, but I think it's just also with people's logic. Trans women are not real women, and they never will be. You can be whoever you want to be, that's fine, but at the end of the day, you're not going to be the same as a real woman. And I think that some people don't truly realize it, and I think it just becomes so normalized today.
Yeah, and okay, so then piggybacking off of that,
Okay.
and you know the Leah Thomas situation, you know the Riley Gaines situation, how can now what's going on with ENES KANTER turn into the laughingstock version of what happened then?
I mean, yeah, I actually have to give it up for, I'll call ENES her, because she is transitioning, and I'm very happy for
But you
her.
just said that they're not real women.
I know. Exactly, but we can't define what a woman is. And so
Right.
that's the problem. A woman is somebody with XX chromosomes, but people don't want to face the real science behind it. And I mean, the NIH did a study, and they said that adult men outperform women by 10 to 30% on average. So, I mean, it's biological that people who are born male are stronger than women.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I don't know if you have something to say, but I thought you said something that's really good, is that we can't define the word woman. Do either of you guys want to take a guess about how many states in America have defined what a woman is? Take a guess without looking at my notes. Don't look at my notes.
22.
Maggie?
2.
The answer is 17
Oh.
out of 50. That's terrible, to be honest. That's horrible. And so that's why I would say that this is much larger than a WNBA issue. If you can't
Yeah.
define simple biology, when I just also think this is really dumb. If you can't like decide what a woman is, why do we have like gender reveal parties? Like, that's so
Yeah.
backwards. We have gender reveal parties, and then those people go and change their gender later on. Like, what's the whole point if we're having a gender reveal party? Might as well wait till you're 18 then, right? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, well. Question for another time. Okay, Maggie, we got to meet the one, the only future WNBA superstar, ENES KANTER. How was that experience?
That was insane. I was turned around. I think I was actually talking to you and another person, but you guys were just talking back and forth. And I turned around and he's right behind me and he's just like smiling at everyone. And then he went to give me a high five and it was so nice to meet him or her, sorry. And she was very nice.
Yeah, it was very. Tyler, you want to ask something?
Yeah, no, it was actually, we were kind of, standing out, and then you heard this commotion. Everybody's starting as he got closer, and then you turn around, and Enes is just walking up, much taller than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And,
She is really tall, yeah.
She was very tall. Definitely going to dominate with some insane dunks down here in the future.
I've been looking forward to it,
But,
honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, Maggie, we didn't go to the game. Unfortunate. Tickets, very expensive. Who would have thought? WNBA tickets, they're getting up there. The competition is rising. I mean, you see the prospects that are coming along. The competition is rising. But Enes got thrown out of the game. He got kicked out of the game. And I don't know if you saw what happened, but basically he was cheering on Sophie Cunningham, and then a player from the Chicago Sky was like, yeah, you're not going to get her to sleep with you. And then Enes was started throwing his hands up, and he was like, what the heck? I'm a woman anyway, so what's it? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was a crazy situation. So what was your reaction to all that?
I was actually really surprised. There were a couple of people, so I'm in a group chat for a lot of people who went to the rally, and I got in a text saying that Enes was kicked out of the game, and I was like, what's going on? For what? And I mean, honestly, I think it's not fair. She didn't do anything wrong. She was just sitting there, and she's supporting the game. I mean, that's what it is. And I think it's actually kind of upsetting. I don't know if you guys saw, but the WNBA said, I think it was today or yesterday, that Enes cannot be drafted. And it's like, you can't define what a woman is, so why not?
Yeah, that's actually ridiculous. I did not see that, actually.
I actually just did a little bit ago. So very transphobic by the league, if you ask me.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
100%.
Yeah, so obviously we're joking, calling him a she. We're making fun of the situation because it's laughable. That's what's funny about this. Like, we had people there yesterday in the rally with us who I would probably say would disagree with us on everything. Like, genuinely everything else, probably when it comes to the political space or the religious space or just the worldview space. And they still are like, yeah, this is common sense. This is stupid. And you even saw that in the video that I played beforehand, where, the guy kept asking question after question after question after question, and I never really got to respond until hey, I'll tell you, but even that guy, I feel probably was very skeptical at first, and maybe you were there for the conversation, Meg, but he seemed very skeptical at first, and then we talked to him, and then he's like, yeah, makes sense, that's common sense. And I think that's how a majority of people are in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember you said something yesterday, how, if you look, there were Republicans and there were Democrats at this rally supporting the same thing, and you said, Democrats and Republicans, we can't agree on hardly anything in the country right now, but this is, so common sense. It's a 90-10 issue that we can come together and at least agree that women's sports should be protected, and biological men obviously had an unfair advantage over women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Maggie, thanks for coming on. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah.
If there is one thing that you want to say to people who are just completely oblivious of what's going on right now, what would you tell them? Why is this important that we're talking about this?
I think it's important just because women have fought so long for equal rights, and I don't even know if this is what this has turned into, because this is not equal rights anymore, because it's just a mockery of what women truly are. And I mean, and since women got the right to vote and everything, I mean, we've had sports, we've had so many great things come with it. And so I think it's just a little bit unfortunate of how we're taking steps backwards, but that's just my thought.
No, I totally agree with you. Well, Maggie, thanks for being on the show, and hopefully it won't be the last time, but yeah, we'll see you next time. All right, we're going to go to a quick ad break, and then we'll be back with our second guest. The first ever partner of the Jacob York Show is Faith and Strength. Faith and Strength is a clothing company that is designed to glorify God and praise Him through clothing and apparel that shows faith, patriotism, and other Christian values. If you want to get clothing that represents those values, or you want to get the first ever The Jacob York Show apparel, visit faithstrength.square.site to get that apparel today.
All right, we are back. I wanted to say there was something interesting that Maggie ended there with, saying how, women had fought so long for rights and equal chances and a lot of things men had in this country. And it's always funny to me that the left in America historically always claimed the banner of being for women's rights and being pro-feminist. And now you kind of have most of the left, I'd say, at least the far left, totally contradicting that claim by obviously not wanting to support women's rights to fairly play in sports and not have, biological men try to come in and destroy their chance that they fought for to have, the WNBA, their sport where they can compete and achieve greatness, destroyed by a man who's mediocre at basketball come in but dominate the league.
Yeah, and I think the whole topic of feminism is really interesting because what people think feminism is it's building up the parts of womanhood that don't get enough spotlight. Like that's kind of like an overall like, hey, we're giving spotlight to women when they don't get the credit that they deserve. What feminism really is, in a modern cultural perspective, is it's turning womanhood into something it's not and raising them above everybody else when that's just not the case, right? Let's be clear. Men and women are different, both created in the image of God, both with different roles on planet Earth. A man's role is not to bear children. Okay? That's not his role. That should be obvious. I mean, the fact that I even have to say this is ridiculous, right? But they have different roles, and that's okay. And what feminism does is it breaks those bounds of those God-created, God-given roles and tries to turn it into something else that it's not.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it's like destructive to women, to their lives. And you see a lot of these, very feminist women who are in the WNBA are actually like really broken people who, obviously, I think they have a lot of hurt. And you see that when they take anger out on the court. Or when, we were at a WNBA game and saw Sophie Cunningham get clotheslined by this girl.
Yeah, borderline assaulted.
And yeah, borderline assault. And some of these women out there are so vicious, and I think maybe it's some of that, feminism that, they're all, into, and, it ultimately hurts them and brings out these bad characteristics in them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, and it's like it's like basically saying, let's say that there was two sports, okay? I play baseball, so I'm going to say baseball is one of them and soccer is the other one. Worldwide, soccer is more popular. But is soccer a better sport? No. It's different. And maybe they have something that I like more, and so then that's like saying that like I need to become a soccer player now, because there's one thing on the baseball side that, doesn't align, or it's not exactly what I want. That's like what the feminist, like the true feminist movement in our society is doing, is it's basically just saying, oh yeah, men and women are different and men are getting certain spotlights that women don't. And maybe part of it is not okay. Sure, maybe that's fine. If that's, the route we want to go, that, we totally recognize both sexes, equally. I don't really think that. I actually think you see the edification or the exalting of women a lot more in our society at this point than men. But yeah, it's like I feel like it's like dumb. We're getting wrapped up into semantics. We're focusing on the wrong problems. Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, totally. And if we focused more on what good qualities men have and what good qualities women have, and elevate those qualities by all means, and not try to obviously they're not going to be equal. You don't have to make them equal.
Yeah.
I think you'd be in a much better situation than we are now.
Yeah. Last thing before we bring our special guest number 2 on is, it's like Will Witt talked about this. Do you think men or women work better on an oil rig? men are way more likely to work on an oil rig, and that shouldn't be controversial. That's just like what men are more prone to do. If I dropped off, let's say I was married, I'm not, and I had a 1-year-old kid, and I dropped my 1-year-old kid off at the nursery, and the nursery was full of only male workers, I'm finding a different one, respectfully. Because women can do different things with kids than men can, and that's okay, and understanding that they were gifted by God in certain and individual ways, and that is totally okay. Totally fine. Not saying that men can't love kids and be great with them. They totally can. But women also have a certain gifting that men don't. Women do have that gift of motherhood that men cannot possibly step into. Yeah. All right. Let's bring on our special guest, Save Women's Sports USA, Dave. Glad to have you on the show. Let me just tell you, make sure you unmute your mic, by the way. StreamYard's a little tricky about that. But let me just tell you guys, Dave, he's got some jokes, so you guys better be buckled up. He's a funny guy. But Dave, glad you're on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
All right, Dave. So you were also at both rallies that both me and Tyler were in attendance. Overall perspective on both rallies to start.
I've been to 3. I went to the one in Indianapolis. The weather was so much better yesterday in Indianapolis. The humidity was ridiculous. We had 0 pushback in Indianapolis. So the first Chicago one at the United Center, we had that group next to us. You guys were there. I was there. And when you try to get into any kind of discussion, at least that night, there was none. And I know you were in on at least maybe filming Kara Dansky. She actually came into my X Space today. She was in a debate, but now that person was just gone mentally. So all their answers were basically just nonsensical. But at least they debated. Most of them won't. It's very hard to get somebody. And as soon as you start getting the edge in a debate, then they'll either walk off or start calling names pretty much. And then yesterday, it was so cool that, ENES, KANTER, Freedom, I turned and he was 5 feet from me. It's like, holy cow, he showed up here. So we seen what went down there with, he was getting harassed as he walked into the stadium.
Yeah, and that was the point that I was about to bring up, is that it's funny that you bring up the other side being very unwilling to talk and very quick to name call, cuss, all those things. ENES KANTER, he walks up lovingly, taking picture with all of us, super happy to be there. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go inside the game. Immediately cussed at, immediately charged at all of these trans activists, super pissed that he's there. And yeah, it's just funny it's very funny in my opinion, that happened, that it was just such a terrible reaction from the get-go.
Yeah, and I get it why he's going to get, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for the record, Tyler's coming in real light on my end. I know he hasn't asked anything, but when Maggie was on, I don't know if it's probably on my end. But I could see why him and that Royce Green are catching heat. But, like Sophie Cunningham, and you're correct, she actually said that in February, she said it in one of the most polite ways I think anybody's ever taken her stance. She loves everybody. Everybody has a place at her table. But basically, men and women should have separate sports. We don't have to hesitate to say that. Most people in the country that agree with us are afraid to speak up. There are consequences. Losing friends, losing jobs. It's a real thing. So this idea of what the other side is pushing, and it goes beyond that. I always say I fight for 3 things. No males in female sports, no males in female spaces, and leave the kids alone. And that starts at grade school and all the way up to college. I've reached out to parents all over the country, and would have stories that people would say, you're making that up. It's a real thing, trying to get kids to somehow turn into the opposite sex, which of course we know can't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to clarify for people. No matter how much ideology change you go through, no matter how much brainwashing you go through, no matter how much physical changes you try to make to your body that God created you with, you cannot change who God chose you to be. And I think that's an important thing because a lot of people think, hey, I can do whatever I want. It's my life. You can make as many bad decisions as you want. That doesn't mean, like, if you cover yourself up with enough makeup and enough costumes and enough whatever, or you chop off enough body parts, that you're going to turn into the thing that you strive to be. And that's a very important point.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You talk about how it's how God made us to be, but in our modern, secularized society, we want to reject God because we ultimately want to be gods ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what secularism has, I think, taught us, and that's what these people want to do. They reject God, so they ultimately want to have control over, like you said, their bodies. But it's still God who's decided their chromosomes and the gender they're going to be.
Yeah. All right. So, Dave, where do you see this going in the future with the WNBA? Are they going to come out and are they going to say, this is what a woman is, guys? Or are they just going to keep playing the peace card and not take a stance on anything?
Well, I really believe it's not necessarily a WNBA issue. Sophie said girls sports a couple of times. So it's been put upon the WNBA. Now, Maggie said something I only heard briefly earlier today from Karadansky, is that, no, it was somebody else in the space, was they did announce that these guys are not eligible for the draft. I know I'm supposed to say these women, but yeah, people still tell me like they're gonna, oh yeah, they're gonna be in the WNBA. Like, I mean, that was my sport. Like, there's no chance they would ever step foot on a WNBA court. They would average. It would look ridiculous. They'd average 60, 70 points a game and 30 rebounds. So that would be the worst thing for their side, the WNBA, to show that. Might be worthy enough to watch, though.
Yeah, that's what Alex Stein was saying, is that there's this really funny Alex Stein clip where he's like, you know what, I'm actually for trans, people and women in women's sports because you can gamble on them and make a lot of money. It's just like such a laughable clip, and you can see like the look on everybody's faces that they're like very upset, very funny.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You were talking about how the league is potentially coming out to say that. What I read, it was an ESPN article, is that it was like sources close to the league are saying that ENES and the other guy aren't going to be let in. But I think it's interesting that the leagues themselves, I don't think, have put out an official statement yet.
This is the first I'm hearing of it. I wasn't on my phone a ton today because I was, running around campus, setting up our studio, going to baseball things. So this is the first I'm hearing from. When like Maggie and you said that, that's the first time I heard of it. That doesn't mean it's not true, but I don't think that WNBA has actually taken an official position on that. I could be wrong in saying that.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it was an ESPN article that said there were rumors and sources close to the league saying that they didn't think ENES and the other guy were going to be eligible. But I think it's interesting. The league, I think, is still scared to come out with a decision or publish an official statement, because then, they're going to also, I think, have to publish a statement on transgender athletes.
Correct.
They don't want to do that.
Correct. And that's what I was just about to ask you, Dave, is that, so if they come out and say, you know what, ENES, you're not capable, you're not qualified to compete in the WNBA, which we know that could never happen for so many different reasons, right? I feel like if they do that, if they say, okay, well, you can't, then they're going to have to say at some point, okay, but you all can. And they're going to have to define who that you all really is.
What I thought would happen is they would just stay silent on it and then just not draft them. But I think what it hinges on now is how far is ENES and Royce White's the other one. How far are they going to go? Because if they don't have a, sex recognition rule where, the IOC, Olympic Committee, other sports organizations have put in a cheek swab. At the higher levels, they're doing cheek swabs. Real simple, once in a lifetime. If they don't put any policy in place, maybe ENES can challenge it legally. I don't know how far they'll take it. If they don't take it that far, then it's going to be a dead issue, because what else are you going to do? They said they're not eligible. They won't draft them. If you don't take it to courts, I guess, it would be all finished.
Yeah, and maybe, Tyler, this is a question for you, but do you think that it's possible if, let's say that ENES and the other guys decide to drop out and not continue to fight this because, they don't see a way of winning. Do you think that, okay, so then the WNBA actually starts letting these trans men compete in women's sports. Do you think that there's a possible legality issue potentially where like somebody like Sophie Cunningham could have like maybe like a legal concern through it?
I'd be interesting to see if maybe she tried to, if that scenario did happen and there was actually, a transgender man trying to get in, she might be able to, pursue some legal routes.
Yeah, I don't know.
It also depends.
Because I don't know, is she like, my kind of thinking is like, is she handcuffed in that situation to just like have to go and play? Or is there like a way that she could be like, hey, I think that this is wrong. How can I pursue this farther without just saying like, hey, this is my voice, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I believe she could maybe try to. And I think that also forces the league. I think the league would have to come up with
something
standard,
correctly
like we said, to then back it up. So they're still then stuck in that position of publishing an official statement.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dave, last question for you. So you're obviously at 3 rallies now. We had multiple very great conversations while we were there. But I will say there's a lot of younger people at those rallies. Like we brought 6 people from our chapter. At the first one that me and you met at, there was a lot more young people at that one too. I would say the future for America is bright. To be honest, the common sense, the side of common sense is winning, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. It's a fight. I think the other side is not giving up easily. It's pretty obvious. They've dug in deep, and this men and women's sports, and even the I'm trying to they're winning the language argument because I'm trying to take the word transgender and just completely throw it away and just say person pretending to be the opposite sex. Because once you say transgender, talking about an individual person, that's basically admitting someone can change their sex, and they can. And gender, they're utilizing gender. We've always, back in my day, gender and sex were the same thing. They're utilizing gender to allow males and female spaces, gender identity. Gender is a social construct. Gender fluidity. What does that really mean? They don't really say things where they're digging in and explaining everything. What is a gender identity? If a middle-aged man wakes up one day and he has a feeling, right? Like, hey, I feel like a woman. And then 4 months later, he's walking in a dress, downtown to have a night out. What does his gender identity of a woman get him? What does it mean? And in self-ID states, what's it mean is he has access to female spaces. But do you have a second? Can I speak on Will Thomas a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so if he legally changed his name to Leah, I'm willing to call him. This is what started me in this, is when Thomas was allowed to swim in the women's NC Division I. You're correct. 2022 was at Georgia Tech, and thank God the Riley touched at the same time and tied, because maybe Riley don't even speak up if it was one way or another, one direction. Yeah. But the race that not a lot of people talk about is the one, and Thomas came in 8th in another national final, but touched first in the fight. I don't even like to say win because it's so stupid, because obviously had a massive advantage, is touched first in the 500 freestyle. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place finishers in that 500 freestyle were Emma Wyant, Erica Sullivan, and Brooke Forty. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th lost to an average male college swimmer. Those 3 ladies, 2 years earlier in 2020, all won silver medals in the Olympics. So you're talking about an average male swimmer, and he was ranked 60th or 90th in certain events, but also in the 400s in other events. So I'm not sure what he ranked in the 500 freestyle in the men's. Now the other side will say, and I don't know how much you got time, because I can talk literally all day on many different topics on this arena here, is the other side will say, well, he had to take HRT, hormone replacement therapy, for at least a year, which by NCAA rules then, that's what it was. So he did during the COVID year, took at least 1 year of hormone replacement therapy, which made him eligible per NCAA rules at the time to swim with the ladies. Now, an average male college swimmer, even with a year on HRT, still beat 3 in the 500, beat 3 of the best female swimmers in the world. So they'll say, oh, he lost all competitive advantage. The results don't show that at all.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think a lot of it is, okay, feeling based. And you talked about this at the beginning. It's all feeling based. You know what? I feel one way, so that's how I am. Well, I could just make the argument. In fact, Andrew Wilson makes it, and I don't, Andrew Wilson, a lot of people controversial, whatever. Don't really care. Andrew Wilson makes a great point in a debate that he has with a left-wing TikToker where they're talking about like gay relationships and homosexual relationships and transgender people. And Andrew Wilson says, okay, so what's the difference between someone feeling attracted to younger people? Not much, because it's all based on feeling. So how can you say one's wrong there, but then we can't say one's wrong over here? Because that's the problem, is we're starting to lose touch with reality. You're starting to see that with a lot of topics in our society. When life begins, whether a life is the sanctity of life in general, you're seeing that with people who are alive, that they're trying to justify murder with people who are alive now, and like not in the womb even. Like we've been justifying abortion for how many years now, and then we've been justifying now the murder of people outside the womb. On top of that, we're losing touch with reality quickly, and it's all because we're wrapped up in emotional, narcissistic, personal, logicless emotion. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I mean, when you replace logic and facts with feelings, I think, like you said, that's what we get in our culture today, just destructive behaviors that ultimately are going to tear society down and destroy it if we don't self-correct.
Correct. John Adams, once again, said it multiple times. Our Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. You cannot be moral and religious without a little bit of common sense and a little bit of logic and a little bit of understanding of how the world operates and how God created it. Dave, thanks for being on the show. I want to give you the final word, last thing, last thoughts for the viewers. What would you like them to know?
Yeah, you spoke of the emotional. There's a lot of emotional blackmailing still going on. Back in 2022, the female swimmers were told to seek therapy if you don't accept Thomas in your locker room and stuff. That's still going on today. There's consequences for speaking up. We need brave people to speak up. Fathers at this point, and you ever want to bring me back? There's tons that's going on in schools. I'll speak briefly on this. There's a 9-year-old, I don't know what state, where a boy pretending to be a girl at 9 years old peeked under her stall door in the bathroom because he identified as a girl, so he's allowed in there. Then he pushed the door open. She was half dressed. The father he has a whole room of signs he made, and he's pounded them into the ground in his hometown. And he's probably looked down upon. Hey, that little boy, he identifies as a girl. It's deeply enrooted. It's embedded into a lot of areas in the country. It's not overnight. I think Obama played a big role with gender identity. Billionaires, so if you ever seen J.B. Pritzker's older cousin Jennifer, that's a 75-year-old man, and a billionaire, and they're funders of this. And it went through the institutions over 10, 15 years into sports organizations, departments, police. There's police departments. Some of them have pride stuff on their cars. Some of that's in Canada. Into education. I got stories from colleges for another day. What's happening in even as young as middle schools. So we need brave people. Appreciate you guys speaking up and being brave, because I'd be willing to bet you lost friends because of your stances on your side of the aisle.
Oh, 100%. Actually, I'll comment on that, and we'll bless you and have you on your way. But it's funny that when you start to get in the space, you start to gain a little traction. I put out some cool videos yesterday, start to gain some followers. You'll see the followers go up, and then you'll see it go back down too. You see, because there's a couple of people a little upset that you're getting controversial out here, a little upset that your views are opinionated, narrow-minded. They'll say that you're stubborn, which is fine. I am stubborn when it comes to the truth. I'm not open-minded when it comes to dismantling body parts from little kids or just any human being, to be honest, for the sake of feeling. That's just not okay, in my opinion. Dave, thanks for being on the show. We'll have you back on very soon, I'm sure.
Appreciate it, guys. Hey, Indianapolis, September 20th and 22nd.
All right.
You guys can make it down one of those days.
All right, maybe we will. Maybe we might have to make a little road trip. We'll bring the camera again, do a little
Let's
interview
go.
there. All right, Dave. Thanks for being
All
on
right,
the
guys.
show. We'll see you next
Appreciate it.
time.
Have a good
All right, Tyler. Let's talk for a few minutes before we wrap up. So, great interviews. Awesome. Love to hear from special guests on the show. I kind of want to more talk about just the absolute ridiculous situation with ENES KANTER yesterday. It's laughable. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally ridiculous that a player who should be focusing on a basketball game gets mad at KANTER, who is just a fan, who got excited for Sophie, who he's there supporting when she made a shot, that girl on the court is then going to start yelling at him. And I don't know exactly what she said. I don't know if you know. But
Yeah, I know that according to the interview that he did, I believe on Fox News, could be wrong about that, but he said that he got excited about a three-point shot Sophie made. The Chicago Sky player then responded back and said, "She's not going to sleep with you," whatever, something like that. Ridiculous. And then he, said, I don't even know. Then it escalated from there. But yeah.
I think that's just totally uncalled for. She shouldn't be. I mean, fans heckle players all the time in sports, and he wasn't even heckling her, so she should just focus.
Yeah, he was
on
cheering.
playing.
He was cheering for Sophie and got backlash for that, and then he was also the one punished for it.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and that's where we're at in society, is that we're punishing the people that are standing up for truth.
Yeah,
Look at Charlie.
I thought it was interesting. I saw somebody post on Twitter, I don't remember who it was, kind of berating KANTER. He said something like, KANTER's coming into what's supposed to be a safe space for women to play basketball and harassing them, which is interesting because he's actually out there because of the things Sophie said to protect women's safe spaces like locker rooms and bathrooms from these gender confused men. So any backlash he got, I think, is ridiculous and undeserved.
Yeah, we're losing truth in society rapidly, and I'm glad that there are people like Dave, like Maggie, like yourself, who are willing to stick up for that. But as I was saying, there is a price to pay for speaking the truth. ENES is, I'm sure, feeling that. I'm sure Sophie feels that. That's why we had that rally, is because Sophie put herself out there, spoke the truth, had the opportunity to do so, and she said, "Hey, I think this is common sense," and she spoke the truth and faced incredible backlash for it. But I mean, we're part of a turning point chapter. Look what Charlie had to do. Charlie went from campus to campus, speaking truth, debating, giving students a chance to speak their mind, giving them a microphone, and it cost him his life. So that's the price of speaking the truth, is potentially your friends, your family, your life, your wealth, your job, all those things.
Yeah, and I think ultimately as Christians, me and you would say, I mean, looking at Jesus, he said, I came, ultimately not to unify everybody. I came and I'm going to be divisive. And, that's truth. It is going to be divisive. It's not everybody's going to agree with you, and you have to accept that once you decide to stand for truth, that you're not going to please people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly what the verse is. I think it's in Matthew, though, where it says that Jesus is going to separate brother from brother and mother from son. And that's what the truth does, is the truth does divide. The gospel divides. The gospel says that you are a depraved sinner who cannot make it into heaven and eternal life and eternal joy with Jesus on your own. You cannot do that on your own. And that you needed someone else to come and save you and to pay the penalty for the sins that you've committed in your life. That's the gospel. That's offensive to say that you're so dark that you pinned a man to the cross. And obviously, when you're evangelizing, you don't exactly pin it or phrase it like that. But that's the gospel. And through that and through the resurrection of Jesus, then we are afforded the ability to be saved under the name Jesus Christ through faith. So yeah, I mean, that's the truth does divide, and that's the reality of where we're at in our culture. So I hope that you guys walk away from this episode understanding that common sense needs to be spoken. It needs to be spoken at the dinner table. needs to be spoken in the classroom, needs to be spoken in the car on the way to school every morning, dropping your kids off. I mean, Proverbs, the first chapter of Proverbs and the second chapter of Proverbs talks an awful lot about how the parents in the household, the wisdom that they speak are like pendants for their neck, and that they're supposed to carry them with them. The kids are supposed to carry those pendants with them throughout the rest of their life. That's very important in our society, that parents, you have an obligation. Teach your kids common sense. Teach your kids the truth. College students, speak up for what you believe. Do not be brainwashed on college campuses. People in churches, you have an obligation to teach the word, to preach the word, to sing the word, to pray the word. We need people speaking truth on all fronts. This is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is not about conservative versus liberal. This is about good versus evil. And it's time that we do our part, and all of us do our part in speaking truth. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's great. You hit the nail on the head.
Oh.
You know, we have to speak truth and not be afraid to go forward. And it's not going to be popular always, but you just got to put that behind you and know that ultimately truth prevails. So just speak truth. Don't be afraid. Share the gospel, and the light will overcome the darkness.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching once again. This is the Jacob York Show. Once again, visit faithstrength.square.site. Get your official Jacob York Show shirts, sweatshirts, other patriotic apparel, other biblical apparel. They got some good stuff on there, and we're happy to partner with them. So thank you guys for watching once again. Tyler, thanks for co-hosting the show. Definitely won't be the last time, considering you're one of my roommates at college. So we'll be doing more shows like this. Hopefully some other content, maybe some debate nights, maybe some live streams down the stretch. We'll see how it goes. But thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys very, very soon. Make sure you share the videos. Send it to somebody who you think would learn something. That would be huge. But thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
It was never about Erica. It was never about
In whatever way possible, we need Christian leaders who have a good understanding of the Bible, to have a good understanding of what's going on in our nation as well, and then be able to communicate that effectively to the youth at the same time.